What you're about to hear now is just one episode in a bigger series, full of secrets and mystery. If you haven't followed the beginning yet, I advise you to go back to the first parts so you can understand every detail and realize how much more dangerous what's coming is. Are you ready to face what lies beneath the water? In the depths of a dark lake, amid the fog, and on a night history we'll never forget, something appeared, something the human mind cannot comprehend. And now, the world knows nothing. No pictures, no evidence. Only we saw and only we barely survived. We thought the story was over, but we were wrong, because the nightmare hasn't even begun. We emerged from the tunnel, weighed down by what we had seen there. The sea behind us roared, as if bearing witness to the madness this place had known. The girl in our arms was trembling, and Maggie tried to hide her fear behind a mask of courage. As for me, I knew that what had happened in those depths was only the beginning. Every step we took away from that cursed rock brought us closer to a greater secret. A secret waiting for us at the castle's table, where Sir James sat, with answers in his eyes, and perhaps new curses as well. Ewan Fraser. The dinner was truly delicious, the one Sir James served us after we emerged from the cellar. Poor Erica devoured the food ravenously, while Maggie fussed with the butter with her table knife, drawing patterns on the rim of her plate, her mind completely elsewhere. Sir James, lighting a cigar, said, "Eat heartily, you escaped miraculously." I said with my mouth full, "It's strange you didn't know anything about that tunnel." He replied calmly, "That's natural, for our family manuscripts speak of 10 other tunnels whose locations are not specified, and they don't mention a buried treasure. So why should I waste my time then?" Maggie suddenly lifted her head from her plate as if she'd remembered something. "Daddy, where did Unfred go?" Sir James shook his head in annoyance and exhaled smoke from his mouth. "We didn't find him. The scoundrel fled last night." I asked, puzzled. "But how did he know we discovered him?" Maggie, blushing, took something from her pocket and said, I found this small card yesterday when we went down the tunnel, and I didn't pay it any attention." I looked at her in surprise, and Sir James, after examining the card, said, "Ah, it's an old trick. The scoundrel slipped this card into a crack in the wall so that if the door were opened, it would fall out. When he comes back to enter the tunnel and finds it missing, he realizes someone discovered his secret." Sir James continued, exhaling deeply. "That's why he didn't bring dinner for Erica last night. He was about to enter the tunnel carrying her food, but he found the note missing. Then he knew his secret was exposed, so he fled." Maggie said anxiously, "But what shall we do now?" Sir James bowed his head in thought, then said in a mysterious tone, "He will not stop trying. He still has the horn and the necklace, and his mad dream." I said quickly, "Then let's alert the police to watch the rock." He thought a little longer, then said, "No, there's a better idea." I picked up the last piece of meat from the plate and tossed it into my mouth. That's good news. My head is about to burst from bad thoughts. Sir James smiled mysteriously and said, "I'll introduce you tonight to a rare sort of person." Ewan Fraser waved his hand mockingly. "The number of lunatics in this world has surpassed that of humanity itself." Sir James nodded in agreement, seemingly unaware that the statement carried a subtle insult to everyone present, including himself. Fraser went on, saying, "Take that madman Anfred, for example. He believes that the honor of his ancestors depends on throwing girls to a monster that tears them to pieces." Ewan Fraser was a large, muscular man with dark skin, a fiery blonde beard, and wild locks of hair framing his head. His gaze was both insolent and intimidating in an unpleasant way, and he ate with needless agitation. At dinner, Sir James had introduced him to us as an old friend, saying that he was skilled in every art of hunting. He had once been a shark hunter. "A shark hunter? And whales? And tigers?" Sir James exclaimed with the wonder of a child. "He's hunted crocodiles. He went to India for tigers. And he hunted elephants in Africa before the authorities banned it." Ewan tapped his chest proudly and said, "In fact, there's nothing on earth that can be hunted that I haven't tried." Then he began telling us stories of his adventures in the jungles of Africa, the savannas, and the high seas. He had hunted everything from birds to whales, and his knowledge of weapons and projectiles was beyond price. I am not naturally envious, nor am I one of those who resent others being in the spotlight. But I felt a lump in my throat as I saw the look of admiration on Maggie's face, drinking in every word from his lips as if it were the water of life. He carried her away with his words, to the Amazon basin, to the Congo jungles, to the plains of China, and she was dreaming. I am not jealous at all, but I loathe such a sadistic beast who delights in tormenting God's beautiful creatures, who cannot sleep peacefully until he is certain that another animal will not see the sun tomorrow. And Maggie loves this. He would say, my garden. That scoundrel Anfred deserves to be torn apart by a bullet, then his corpse trampled and fed to the dogs. Even in his passion for good, he was as wicked as the devil himself. How could Maggie and Sir James fail to notice such traits? I leaned toward Maggie and whispered in her ear, "Why did your father bring this butcher here?" She didn't answer, for she was listening intently to his tales, her eyes wide with wonder, her lips slightly parted. Maggie turned toward me in confusion, as if I had woken her from a wonderful dream, and asked, "What?" I said, "Why did your father bring this murderer here?" She muttered irritably, "I think there's only one explanation, and I don't believe you're that stupid. Now be quiet. What he's saying really matters to me." She went back to listening to his words with her whole being. I drained the glass of juice before me and felt that no drink in the world could quench my thirst or wash away the bitterness in my throat. And dinner ended. Ewan wiped his mouth roughly with the napkin, then announced that he must leave and return early tomorrow to discuss business, as he put it. He shook Sir James's hand and then mine. His grip felt as if it were carved from stone, before taking Maggie's hand and bowing to kiss it, his eyes never leaving hers. Then he departed. I burst out in alarm as soon as the door closed. "Sir James, don't tell me you plan to cooperate with that animal to kill the Loch Ness monster?" He shrugged indifferently and said, "And why not? We haven't agreed yet, but killing the creature is exactly what I want." He looked at me in surprise. "Do you have a better idea?" I said, "Yes. What business is it of ours anyway? Why don't we just inform the police and be done with it?" He placed his hand on my shoulder with the calm patience of a man in prayer and said, "My son, killing the monster gives us two opportunities, two birds with one stone. First, it will end the chain of sacrifices that would surely continue as long as that creature, Lothrop, remains free. And second, it will fulfill our long-cherished dream. We will have the complete, intact body of the Loch Ness creature, for the world to see, for scientists to study, and for the curators of the Natural History Museum to preserve. Fraser will offer me my scientific glory, the fruit of our struggles, on a golden platter. But even if we accept this, how can he possibly kill it?" "That's his problem," he said, smiling and winking at me as he left the hall. "Trust that he'll find a way." I didn't argue much, but deep down I believed that the Loch Ness monster deserved its life, after surviving 8 centuries, free and untamed, while generations came and went. It was no more evil than a lion that eats only flesh, innocent of wrongdoing. If someone throws a man to the lion and the beast devours him, do you punish the lion or the criminal who prepared every condition for the kill? But all this was premature, for I doubted that this so-called man could harm anything fiercer than a wild rabbit. They've been trying to catch this monster since 1933, and every one of them has failed. So what could Ewan Fraser possibly do that all those before him could not? In the morning, I went to Maggie's room. The door was open, and there she sat at the table with something like headphones over her ears. In front of her were complete sculpting tools, a complex tangle of wires, and a microphone hanging just a few centimeters from her mouth. Beside her stood a complicated machine resembling a heart rate monitor, from which a long paper strip emerged covered with jagged lines. Next to it were a coffee thermos and a cup. And as soon as she noticed me, she raised her hand in greeting. Silently, I said curiously, "Maggie, what is the—" But she stopped me with a sharp look from her eyes and gestured reproachfully toward the strip of paper emerging from the device, covered with many jagged wavy lines. Now I understood. She was testing a complex machine that converts sound vibrations into visual patterns, a phonogram, making them easier to analyze and measure. But what was the point of this experiment? And why did she suddenly remember that she was a physicist at this very moment? Then I saw her pick up something long and white that looked like a horn. She brought it to her lips and blew into it before the microphone. Nothing. No sound. Yet the paper kept creeping out of the machine, filled with dense, overlapping lines. She reached for the switch and turned the device off, then removed the headphones from her head with a sigh of relief. She poured herself some coffee and handed me the thermos and another cup. Drink, help yourself, I'm busy. I sat down, realizing that the ban on questions was now lifted. No thanks. Now tell me, what are you doing? She pointed to the device and said, as you can see. I picked up the horn she had crafted, examining it in admiration. It's beautifully made. She smiled. Thanks. Be careful not to trip over those wires. I asked, where did you get the ivory you carved it from? It's a piece Ewan Fraser gave me yesterday. I said sarcastically. How very kind of him. Maggie cut the strip of paper filled with the latest lines, then stood and moved to a sheet of transparent paper hanging beside her bed, covered with similar markings. She placed the two sheets on top of each other. She said excitedly, what do you think? The wavy lines matched perfectly. I spoke in confusion. Amazing, but what does it mean? She explained eagerly. The transparent sheet shows the sound vibrations produced by the original stolen horn, the Viking horn. And the other one shows the vibrations from the horn I carved all night, trying to match the same frequency and wavelength. Then she lifted her head proudly and said, they're an exact match. I was stunned, and she smiled a triumphant smile. That means I've recreated the horn they used to summon the Loch Ness monster. Then she looked at the horn in wonder and added, but the strange thing is, it makes no sound at all. No. Those are vibrations at a very high frequency beyond the range of the human ear, but there are other ears that can hear them, just like dog whistles. The Loch Ness monster recognizes that frequency and waits for it. I said sarcastically. If that were true, it would burst into the room now wagging its tail like a dog. You must have blown into that horn dozens of times. She playfully hit my shoulder with her fist and said affectionately, don't be ridiculous. The range of this horn's sound won't reach the lake unless we blow it at the castle. Then she looked at the horn with intense wonder, the wonder of an artist at a statue he has just finished, and said, this way we can summon Nessie whenever Ewan wishes so he can kill it. I've finished my task, only the carving of the necklace remains. She opened a book in front of her and took out a sheet on which, sketched in pencil by shading, was an exact copy of the stolen sacrificial necklace. The drawing was crude, showing a dragon devouring a girl who looks up at the sky, surrounded by ornate letters that did not speak of good taste. She said, holding up the sheet, I'll need your help. You're good at drawing and carving. We must make a bronze necklace that matches this drawing exactly. I smiled and said, with pleasure. But what's the point of it? She looked at me in astonishment and said in a surprised tone, sometimes I don't understand you, Rifat. How will the Loch Ness monster devour me if I'm not wearing the sacrificial necklace? What you have just heard is only one chapter of a long novel, a journey that has not ended yet, and secrets that have not all been revealed. In the upcoming parts, you will find the truth becoming more mysterious and the events more thrilling. So be ready, because the story has not spoken its final word yet.